Hey, what's up guys, First here, and today I wanted to take a moment about the changes to the map rotation in Season 3 that'll be happening. Now, there's been tons of stuff already about this, there's been official announcements, and tons of other people have covered it in their videos, so I'm not going to go about this sort of covering the details and revealing the full bits of it. I'm sure it'll come out as I cover it, but I wanted to sort of offer my opinion on it. And so what they're doing is they're making the map rotation in competitive playlists to be much smaller and to mimic that of the competitive scene, the professional scene that is, and I think this is probably a good idea. And then they're also making changes to the casual map playlist, the total number of maps available, and so I really kind of like this change for a number of reasons. First of all, for competitive, it makes sense to have a select set of competitive maps. You see this happen in various other games, CSGO, for example, or even in Call of Duty. In classic Call of Duty, they have set rules for sort of loadouts and stuff like that in professional play, and so it makes sense from a competitive standpoint, which is why you see it in professional play, and it makes sense to drag that down to the more open public sphere, at least in the competitive realm. And in casual, we see something similar happening, although the map pool is much bigger. So I'll be ignoring the competitive bit because that sort of makes sense to me. I think it makes sense to just about everybody. And so we're going to talk about the casual a little more specifically here. So they have said in Season 3 they will be reducing the casual map playlist to 15 maps, reducing the total number of maps available in your casual playlist to make the process of learning new maps easier. So one of the things that's key here is they've identified the huge learning curve that exists in this game. In other games such as League of Legends or Dota, your learning curve is not only strategy, but it's items and what you buy and what you do, and in CSGO there's a bit of that too, but mostly in Rainbow Six Siege it's not really sort of your loadout or the weapons you take, it's more so the maps, because the maps are the key bit. Everybody has a gun, everybody points that gun, everybody pulls the trigger, and it shoots. So all the basic mechanics are the same for everybody, and maybe the gadget has some nuanced uses that you could learn at the higher levels of play, but even as a new player, they're fairly straightforward. So the maps become key, and with so many rooms and so many small rooms based on realistic structures, not large sort of stretches like you get in CSGO, like you look at Dust 2 for example, very large area, small tunnel section, you know what I mean? There's not a bunch of really tight structurable stuff and odd hiding places that people can go. So it makes sense that the maps are kind of the huge learning spike that exists within Rainbow Six Siege, and this becomes apparent if you've ever played with a new player. You might get to an objective and you might see them sort of looking around for what they do. What do I do? Why do I do this? Anyone that's played House will know that when you get the secure area in Kid's bedroom, sometimes you'll see people reinforcing the wall, and the general consensus is you don't do that, because if you do, then the attackers get on the site and it becomes very hard to push them off. Whereas if you leave it open, you have the possibility to wallbang them. So sort of focusing on making their game more appealing to new people, which I've seen a huge influx because they've introduced the starter edition of the game, so it makes it very cheap for people to buy into the game. Now of course it makes it harder for them to progress and unlock, but the cost difference there is mitigated, whereas if they paid the same money at a later point to unlock the operator's real money, it comes out to be about the same price anyway. I'm getting a bit off topic here, but basically I really like the change of the casual map focus to sort of be a bit smaller, and then I like what else they say. We're quickly approaching the limit to our data sizes, and this will require a rework of how maps are stored. As a result, we are currently planning on removing the maps from the game entirely down the road, and then that all the maps that are removed will be, some of the maps that are removed will be reworked by our level design team. Now, these are very key things. So basically, when you release a game, you have such a size, and nobody wants to download a game that's 100 gigabytes and then have that sitting there, especially if they're not going to play it too often. And 100 gigabytes definitely becomes a lot more issue on console, because I'm sure console has a little more restrictions involved with data size, and you see this with various modding stuff. So like Fallout 4, for example, when they enabled modding on consoles, you had very limited mods based on the size of those mods, because they didn't want you to use up too much memory on people's Xbox, because they cannot simply upgrade their storage unit on the console itself. They're all limited to a set hardware, and you could attach external drives, sure, but because they want the base package to work for everybody, that sort of limits stuff. So I think one of the key things here is they said that some of the maps will be removed and reworked by the level design team, and this makes me very happy because some maps have some very issued spots or very issued sites. For example, there's on the house, I'm going to keep drawing from house because house is both a great and horrible map. On the house, you can get the secure area site that's on the first floor, just inside the door. It's absolutely trash of a site. Absolutely trash of a site, right? It's got so many exposed sides. The one side is exposed from the door near the kitchen. There's windows all along the one side, a large window on the other side, and the front door looks right into the foyer on that side. So it's impossible to stay and anchor on site for that, or it's extremely difficult to, rather. So it's just a bad site in general. Like, you can't attack it from above, but it's just bad. And so them being able to take those maps and focus on sort of fixing some of the issues they have with them, and alleviating some of the issues that players have demonstrated as they learn the maps more is very nice. And we've seen a bit of that already with the spawn peeking fixes. Spawn peeking fixes are relatively simple though, and they're much more targeted. You say, okay, they're peeking from this window using this angle line of sight. Let's stop that. You know what I mean? And in stuff where the map design is just bad, then that's something that isn't quite so simple of a fix, because that piece of the map might tie in heavily with other sections that, although in that one instance on that one site it's bad, when the site isn't located there, that room itself isn't a bad location. It's just only when it's the objective, for example. And so then they have to reevaluate it as an objective. They have to sort of change it, but not make it a ridiculous room that exists in general. So I think this is a very good thing. They're sort of making the game use less storage space, or trying to alleviate the storage space usage that their game has. They're trying to simplify the number of maps so that way new people playing the game don't have to learn so many maps to sort of become a little more fluent in the game itself, which is a very nice touch. However, one of the things I'm a little annoyed to see is that they've announced that House will be in the rotation. And in my opinion, House needs some fixes. Needs a number of fixes. They've taken Yacht off, obviously, so the casual map rotation playlist is Bank, Clubhouse, Oregon, Cafe, Consulate, Chalet, Border, Coastline, Skyscraper, Canal, Hereford, University, House, Plane, and Theme Park. And University needs some changes to the second floor. It needs some changes to the entry possibilities for the second floor, in my opinion. And House needs some changes to some other sections of it. So like those two are included in the thing, and it bothers me a little bit because they're taking Yacht out, and I view Yacht as much less troublesome in some regards than some of the places on House and University, for example. Yacht has its issues, don't get me wrong. And then there's other maps. I don't like Skyscraper. Personally, I kind of don't like playing it too much. But as a map, it's not broken. So I'm fine with it being there. And so then they're removing as the last thing, they're removing the map preferences section. As you know, in the matchmaking settings, if you go to your game options, there's a map preferences setting. You could set stuff that you do or don't want to play, and they're removing this, and it makes sense. If they're reducing the overall number of maps, there's no point in having a preferences section. It didn't really work super well to begin with. I mean, there's some very nice changes coming here. I guess my question to you guys is, what do you think about these changes? Do you think that the reduced map size is kind of like, this is bad because now we're reducing the overall map size, we got the DLC coming, are we just going to start removing the DLC that we all paid season passes for? Granted, we didn't get the maps out of the season pass exactly, but you get my point. And so it's interesting. Let me know what you guys think. Do you think this is a good change, reducing the overall map pool? Do you think it should just be left alone? Do you like the change to the competitive but not the casual? Do you like it to both? Do you like the idea of them reworking maps? Do you think that most of the maps are kind of fine where they were and that they don't need to be removed entirely to rework them? Or even do you think the maps don't need to be removed from your game files entirely? Because they've sort of hinted towards that. They said as they're quickly approaching the thing, they are currently planning on removing maps from the game entirely down the road. Not in this season, but down the road. Which begs to differ that in maybe a year's time, House just won't be a part of the game anymore. Do you think this is a good idea? Do you think this is a bad idea? Do you think that that's too restrictive, that you'd rather have a game that's 100 gigabytes as opposed to 60, just so you have that extra map, even if it's hardly ever used? I don't know. Let me know in the comments down below. As always, guys, leave a like if you liked the video, a dislike if you disliked the video, and think about getting subscribed for more content.
5 seconds left. Op 4 eliminated. Mission successful.